Hi, this is African time. Let's continue with 2025. Okay, we are all new here. Well, let's continue with the 2025 edition of Vidashi Studios. Okay, well, now see this. This was shared by the African Narrative on X. This says top 10 busiest international flight routes from Africa in 2024. Have you flown any of these routes? By number of scheduled seats. Okay, so we're going to discuss top 10 most busiest routes from Africa to other parts of the world. Okay, we are going to discuss this. But do you know something? It's going to shock you what are the top 10 or the most busiest routes for Africans. It's going to shock you guys. You might think that in your countries, you guys are actually boarding planes and all, but I don't know how to say, but man, it's shocking. See this. Okay, so it was said number one route is from Cairo to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, with about 5 million people boarding that in only 2024. Number two is Cairo to Riyadh, another Saudi Arabian country, or another Saudi Arabia, or again Saudi Arabia. It's 3 million people boarding their flights there. Number three is again Cairo to Dubai. Wow, about 1.9 million people. Number four is Cairo to Medina, to Saudi Arabia again, about 1.8 million people. Number five is Cairo to Kuwait, So the Kuwait too is about 1.7 million people. Then we have number six, Algiers, that is Algiers to Paris, CDG, that is about 1.3 million people. And then again we have from number seven is Addis Ababa to Dubai, that is 1.1 million people. Then we have from Paris Oro to Saint Denis, that is about 1 million people. Then from Cairo to Doha, another 1 million people. And then we have Algiers to Paris Orly, that is about 1 million people too. Okay, so this is your top 10 most busiest flight routes in your African continent. Well, now you see, Egypt, for the top 5, Egypt had 5 routes, and then we had Algeria, then you had Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, then we had Paris Orly, and then you have another Algeria. So Egypt had 6 out of the top 10 busiest flight routes. Algeria had 2, and then Addis Ababa, Ethiopia had 1. Now, what is with Egypt and these Saudi Arabian countries or these Arab countries? Because Egypt Riyadh, Egypt Medina, Egypt Dubai, Egypt Jeddah, Egypt Kuwait, Egypt Doha. Well, what is happening with Egypt and these kind of routes? And as I said, most of my sub-Saharan Africans are going to get surprised. Like, yo, we thought maybe from South Africa going to Europe, we thought Nigeria to Europe, Ghana to Europe, Kenya to Europe, or Kenya to other African countries were actually busiest flight routes. You have been seeing a lot of African countries. Maybe South Africans have an airport that have an annual about 1 million travelers annually and all. But hey, about 5 million people seated or book a flight from Egypt, Cairo to Jeddah. About 3 million people from Egypt to Riyadh. About another 1 million people from Egypt to Dubai. About 1.8 million people from Egypt to Medina. So, what is happening? What connection does Egypt have with these Arab countries that Egypt actually travel to these places? Now, that is the $1 million question. But guess what? We are here to answer that question too. Let's see this. Okay, so they also came and says, Africa's air market is small but vital, linking Europe and Middle East and Asia. The busiest route, Cairo-Jeddah, serves over 5.4 million seats yearly, according to OAG Aviation Busiest Flight Route Report 2024. Okay, so if you are wondering about the source to this information, is all done by the OAG Aviation's Busiest Flight Route Report 2024. You can Google search it, and you can get all the criteria and all the information you need to know about this that I'm talking about today. Now, the question I asked, what is actually between the Egyptians and then these Arab or these Middle Eastern countries? That is the Saudi Arabians and the Dubais and then the Jordans. Okay, let's see. So by Google AI search, they says travelers can visit Egypt and Saudi Arabia for a variety of reasons, including to explore the city, experience the culture, and visit the holy sites. Okay, now it says, so to Jeddah, Egyptian travel to Jeddah, it says a city with a rich history and a culture, including historic downtown and old houses and mosques. Medina, a holy city in Islam that attracts millions of pilgrims each year. We all know Egypt is a highly Muslim-dominated country, so we now know why they actually go to Medina, though. Now, again, Sohag is a city with a rich cultural heritage and natural beauty, and a Red Sea resort popular destination for European and Turkish tourists. Mecca, a holy city in Saudi Arabia. So mostly the Egyptians mostly travel to these countries or these places mostly for religious purposes. That is one thing for sure. Now, again, they also says the most popular route for flying from Egypt to Saudi Arabia is from Cairo International Airport to King Abdulaziz International Airport in Jeddah. The average flight time is 2 hours and 31 minutes, and the average round trip ticket price is around $399. Okay, so it says to visit Saudi Arabia, international visitors need a Saudi e-visa. The application process is online and it can be completed in minutes. Okay, so now we know Egyptians spent about just $399 to travel to these places, and then mostly Jeddah from Cairo to Jeddah is actually the Africa's most busiest route. That is having about 5 million people boarding in only 2024. That is insane. Now, we have known that the Egyptians and the Saudi Arabians or the Arab people have something in common, that is mostly religious, but it's more than that. See this one too. So on Wikipedia, I found it says Egypt-Saudi Arabia relations. So it says historically, relations between the Arab Republic of Egypt and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia could be considered as extending several centuries back to the relations between earlier regimes in Egypt, the highly autonomous Egypt elites in the Ottoman Empire and the Kingdom of Egypt, and the earlier manifestation of Saudi Wahhabi power in the Arabian Peninsula, Emirates of Deir. Saudi Arabia and Egypt are both highly influential countries in the Arab world. Egypt is the most populous Arab country, and Saudi Arabia is a member of the G20. So according to a 2013 Pew Global Opinion poll, 17% of Egyptians express a favorable view of Saudi Arabia and 19% express an unfavorable view. Okay, so it says that Egyptians have a lot of things in common, not only religiously, but also considering their kingdom and centuries ago how they were actually formed. And Egypt being one of the biggest Arab countries in the world, okay, or most populous countries in the world actually determines that. And it says to say that about 78% of Egyptians love visiting Saudi Arabia. Only just 90% don't actually want to be there, but 78% wants to be there. In a country of about 100 million people, and then 78% love to visit your country, means that actually that's going to be the most busiest flight route in Africa. So now you know why Egypt's flight route to Medina and Mecca and then Riyadh and then Jeddah or was actually topping in the African business route. Now you know. Okay, so to my western side of Africa, my eastern side of Africa, my southern side of Africa, you guys are doing great, but the Egyptians seems to love their Saudi Arabian brothers more than any other African countries traveling to. Okay, so that is something interesting I learned through my research and also gotten to know all these about African flights. So this one says so the questions, a lot of Africans were saying, this one says, I've never flown any of these routes. This one also says, I haven't flown any of these routes. These are some people from other part of Africa, mostly some central or eastern or western or southern part of Africa. But to the northern part of Africa, mostly Egyptians, they actually travels to that route, and it's actually the most famous route for them. Okay, so that is it. That is Virashi, and this was African Time, and this is Virashi Studios. Hopefully you like this and you have learned something and also known something here. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and let's discuss Africa and more interesting facts about Africa. See you guys around.